Hello, Brovs. We're back with Anyone's Son, a true story by Roberta Roche with Harry de la Roche Jr. And I finally did a Google search on Harry Jr., that is, and it says that he was paroled last May. Not this year, but last May, 2023. So he's out there after 5 years in prison. Section 8. In the De La Roche's 12 years in Montvale, Harry Jr., understandably, saw both his family and himself from his personal introspection. But the views of others who know the family covered a very wide spectrum. What you heard depended on the person with whom you talked. To many of the members of Christ Lutheran Church, the family was a model one as they sat worshiping together in the church in the round, but others in the church and town saw some other sides too. They could all be great, said an engineer who knew them through community work, and they were engrossed in everything everywhere in town, but that doesn't tell you what went on behind their own front door. I sometimes thought there was something there you couldn't put your finger on. They gave a very strong picture of family unity, but to me this unity was a facade and something that wasn't there. The family didn't work together, said a grandmother in the town, and I always felt that the brothers teased Harry Jr. a lot. I was in that house just twice, and I never wanted to return. Everyone was on young Harry's back. Nothing he did was right. On the other hand, the neighbor who let Harry use her garage said all the sons were three nice boys and very, very respectful. They did many odd jobs to help me, she recalled, and I felt I knew all three of them as though they were my own. Jeff, the causemaker, the slightly built reddish blonde who knew both Harry and Ronnie, and who got to know them well, summed up the family by saying he sensed a great need for recognition inherent in everyone. In Eric, it wasn't really obvious because of his age, Jeff declared, but the father had to be a leader. It made him feel important and strong. The mother was respected for her community work. Harry was struggling for recognition through his cars and the way he raced. And Ronnie was trying to find it by getting involved with pot. It made him feel big to be able to say, hey, look what I've got. When the family was viewed individually, most people agreed that Ronnie was well accepted and liked. Though one peer who knew both Ronnie and Harry answered, what was he like? Ronnie was a regular guy and he never caused any trouble, but there was something about him. There was something hidden inside. Others spoke of his outgoing ways and his skill in sports, and some said that as a sophomore, he started to go with a rowdier crowd and follow a different group. I don't know who Ronnie's friends were in grammar school, so I can't compare them with his high school friends, stated one of his teachers, but the kids he was with in 10th grade were not the malicious type. They were just a group that was going a little ahead of its time. I'd say he was exposed to drugs, but I saw no evidence of it, and guilt by association could be the very worst kind. He wasn't as neat as Harry, and sometimes his long, straight hair could look pretty terrible. He always had a smile, related to another teacher, and sometimes instead of disciplining him, you just have to laugh with him. Eric, with his Beatles-style haircut and dimples and contagious grin, was summed up, as Harry put it, as a nice little kid and an imp. Kind of looks like a Monkees member, the band, that is, animal. Eric was full of the devil, said Patricia Mulligan, the mother of Eric's friend Mitch. Once Eric and Mitch had a puppet show and Eric was the Jolly Green Giant. I can see him working on it now. He was always grinning and playing jokes, and then he'd look at you with that grin and say, are you going to yell? One time, when we had a pajama party, the kids all had those plastic sticks that light up and glow in the dark. And Eric ran out in his underwear in the middle of the night and flashed the stick in the windows to scare the rest of the kids. Mary Jane was all for her children, Mrs. Mulligan continued. She was a den mother for 6 years, and the kids can't ever remember hearing her raise her voice. Harry's mother was great, added Steve Mahoney. Often I used to call her Mom, and she'd say, hi, son, to me. Sometimes after Luther League meetings or basketball games at the church, she'd ask about Harry Jr. Roger Anderson said. I know she was concerned about him while he was growing up, and she probably knew the pressures he endured in school and town. Maybe she didn't realize, though, the pressure they put on him at home. I tried to encourage her as I could and say Harry is doing great because I felt in his last year in high school he was coming into his own. Roy Nilsson, the bearded pastor at Christ Lutheran Church, and a very caring person who had 5 children himself, characterized Mary Jane de la Roche as a thoroughly delightful person. I can remember visiting her during her hospitalizations, he recalled, and she impressed me at the time as a very real individual. So often people expect clergymen to come in with their collars on backwards and talk about lofty things, but she didn't cast me in a mold, and I appreciated her for that. She used to kid me about smoking a pipe because she liked her cigarettes until they became a problem. I've often wondered about her role within the family circle, and my guess would be that most of the time it was let's not make waves. She probably tried as much as she could to maintain stability. The town was her life, reported the director of the Montvale Welfare Office, where Mary Jane was a volunteer who delivered gift baskets to the needy. She helped many, many people. I was very close to her. People saw many different sides of the master of the house, whose hopes and dreams for his family were erased to nothing at all. In all fairness to him, however, and the image he envisioned, it has to be stressed again and again that he wanted the finest for his family. And as the friend who knew him best, Steve Madreperla, I'll go with, claimed he thought the way to live the most was to discipline your children. If he got off target in calling the shots, one can't forget his boyhood and the father he never had. He meant to be the boys' mainstay, and he meant to be the guiding hand that would mold them into the image he had created for them. A notebook of comments about him reads on the positive side. He had a very helpful side and was always right on hand for whatever needed to be done. If your house fell down and you needed help, he'd be the first one with a hammer. Once, when a dog was hit on his street, he was the first one out of the house to move it from the road. He was the friendly usher in church who was there nearly every Sunday with the smile and the big glad hand. He was always jovial and good-natured at work, and he often went out to the stores to buy things for his children, as long as he approved of the games or the other things the boys wanted. He was proud of Harry Jr., too, and just the Tuesday before he died, he brought his picture in uniform to show his coworkers. He was terribly disappointed, though, when he failed to make West Point. The kid was under pressure. There isn't any doubt about that. At town meetings, he wasn't hard to take. He'd listen to other viewpoints, and when he'd make a suggestion, he wouldn't defend it to the end, whether it was right or wrong. Others had negative comments on Harry de la Roche Sr. He was difficult at meetings. It always had to be Harry's way. That was the way that he wanted it. He was editor of the church paper once, and I was on a committee that needed an item included. I can still hear him saying in an overbearing way, either you give it to me right now or it doesn't go in at all. Well, I mean, he did have a deadline. Yeah, he did a lot of things, but he was a son of a bitch. Not everyone in Little League and his other activities liked him. He was always telling Harry how to run his life, and he wasn't realistic in what he expected from the boys. He tried to make the decisions about everything Harry did. In fact, he was almost a Hitler type and terribly harsh on his kids. I always had an uneasy feeling about Mr. De La Roche, and I certainly didn't like the idea of all those guns in the house. It's like an invitation to shoot if something ever goes wrong. A man who worked with Harry S. in the Montvale Athletic League said he saw several negative qualities that he felt reluctant to discuss because so many were exactly what I and other fathers do. But Harry had a Prussian aura, and he was so full of his own importance he felt he was right about everything. He was a very hard taskmaster in pursuing his ambitions for his sons. This may have been a form of love, but I don't think the kids understood it, so it was hard for them. In discussing the love in the family and how little or how much was there, one person who grew up with Harry Jr. says Harry was starved for affection, and she can't remember any occasion when anyone really hugged him. I don't know that he was never hugged and that he was starved for affection, Pastor Roy Nielsen responded, but I can conjecture that if Harry Sr. was the ultra conservative person some people say he was, he'd go along with the premise that men don't hug or kiss. That would be a lack of demonstration, though, rather than a lack of love. Bob Gant felt there was love in the family, but he saw it as the kind of love that expected a lot in return. Just the way Mr. de la Roche wanted Harry to go to the Citadel showed that he cared, contended Bob, but you can be imprisoned by a love that expects too much of you. Catherine Hennessy, with whom Harry felt close when he visited her in Parkbridge, agreed that a well-meaning love in the family might have been a demanding one. I personally believe that Harry needed love badly, she confirmed, but I think he got a love that said, "You are our son, and we love you by your doing and we love you by your doing what we want you to do." All right. That's all for Harry. Chapter 9, or Section 9, whatever it is, awaits. Goodbye, Ruff. Goodbye.